Chapter 14. Every bird and bug in Birmingham stops and wonders. I know it was Sunday because I heard Joetta getting ready for Sunday school. The neighbors came and got her as soon as I got out of bed. I was standing in the doorway of the bedroom doing my morning scratches, and then when she walked by, "Hi, Kenny, see you later." "Bye, Joey." She had on a fluffy white skirt, a regular blouse, and little white gloves Grandma Sands had made her. I don't know why, but I said, "Joey?" She stopped. Huh. I couldn't think why I called her name, so I just threw out, "You look real pretty." She smiled and thanked me. She did look kind of pretty, too. She had on a lacy white hat and little lacy white socks and her shiny, shiny black shoes. The people that came to get her saw me. One of them said, "How come you ain't coming to Sunday school, young man?" I smiled and said, "I forgot to get up on time." Everybody in the house knew that was a lie, but no one seemed to care. I wondered if there was something wrong with me because it was real easy for me to lie, even if to pack a religious people on a Sunday morning. I had my cereal and went out to the backyard. It was too hot to eat even this early in the morning, so I walked over to the giant magnolia tree and rested in the coolness of the shade. All the energy was gone from me already. It had been a few days since I almost was snatched by the whirlpool, and I still felt weak and tired all the time. Byron had made me promise not to tell anyone what had happened, so everybody thought I was just being lazy. I heard people waking up and moving around inside, but I was feeling too tired to go and speak to anybody or anyone. Mama stuck her head out the back door, ready to yell for me, but when she saw me plop down on the foot of the tree and smiled, "Well, Kenneth, I thought you'd wandered off. How are you this morning?" It was too hot to sleep. "Think you can last one more week?" "Uh-huh." "Well, isn't this better than winter up north?" "Quit teasing, Mama. You know it isn't. I wish I was back in our igloo in Flint." She laughed and the screen door closed behind her. I started going to sleep under the tree, and I thought I was dreaming when the noise came. I felt it more than I heard it. A giant old magnolia tree shook one time like something had given it a hard snatch by the roots. Then there was a sound like thunder, far off thunder coming, except it only thundered now one long time. It seemed like every animal and bird and bug in Birmingham just stopped making noise for about 2 seconds. It seemed like everything that was alive stopped whatever it was doing and was wondering the same thing. What was that noise? Doors opened in the neighborhood and people came out and looked up at the sky, but there was nothing there. Not one cloud. Nothing to give a clue as to what that big hollow sound was. Nothing but bright, hot, stupid Alabama sun. Dad came to the back door, his pajama pants, and a t-shirt. "What was that? Was that back here?" I shook my head. He looked like a bell. It looked like a bell went off in his head, and he said, "Oh Lord, where's Byron?" Byron poked his head out of the door, still in his underpants and still doing his morning scratches. "What?" he said. "I didn't do nothing. I was asleep. What was that bang?" Dad kept looking towards the sky and said, "Must have been a sonic boom." He closed the screen door. If this had happened in Flint, I would have investigated to find out what it was. But what that horrible sun had sucked all the curiosity out of me. I leaned back against the tree and closed my eyes. I don't know if I got to sleep or not, but Mama's scream made me jump nearly off the magnolia top branch. I'd never heard Mama's voice sound so bad. I felt like I did that time I stuck a bobby pin in the wall socket. I ran to the door and ran to the house, and Vi almost knocked me over running back towards the bedroom. "What's wrong with Mama?" I asked. I looked in the living room, but Mama and Dad weren't there. I ran back to the bedroom, where Byron was trying to wrestle into a pair of pants. "Bye, what happened?" He got his pants and said, "A guy just came by and said someone dropped a bomb on Joey's church." And he was gone, exploding out the front door, trying to zip up his pants at the same time he ran off to the porch. Some of the time I wondered if something really was wrong with me. Byron had just told me that someone had dropped a bomb on Joey's church, hadn't he? If that was true, why did I just stand there looking stupid? If that was true, why was I the only one thinking about how much trouble I was going to get in when they heard how he slammed the screen door, and asking myself why hadn't he put on his shoes? His socks wouldn't last 2 minutes in the Alabama mud. So I ran onto the porch and into the street, and I looked like someone had set off a people magnet. It seemed like everyone in Birmingham was running down the street. It looked like a river of scared brown bodies was being jerked in the same direction I had gone in, so I followed. I guess my ears couldn't take it, so they just stopped listening. I could see people everywhere, making their mouths go like they were screaming and pointing and yelling, but I didn't hear anything. I saw Mama and Dad and Byron holding on to each other, all three of them looking like they were crazy and trying to keep each other away from the pile of rocks that used to be the front of the church. Mama was so upset that she even forgot to cover the space in her front teeth. I couldn't hear her, but I bet $1,000,000 she was shouting why over and over like a real nut. It looked like Dad's mouth was yelling, "Joetta." I was kind of surprised no adult stopped me from walking right up to the church. I got right next to where the door used to be when the guy came out with the little girl in his arms. He had on the same thing Dad did, a t-shirt and white pajamas, but it looked like he'd been painting red and red paint. This little girl had on a blue dress and a little blue frilly socks and black shiny shoes. I looked into the church and I saw smoke and dust flying like a tornado was in there. One light from the ceiling was still hanging down by the wire, flickering and swinging back and forth. And every once in a while I could see stuff inside. I could see a couple of grown-ups moving around looking lost, trying to pick up things when the smoke would come cover them, and then the bulb would flicker out and they disappear. I could see Bibles and coloring books thrown all over the place. Then they'd get covered up by the smoke. I could see a shiny black shoe lying half underneath some concrete, and it got covered with smoke, and then the light bulb flickered out again. I bent down to pull on the shoe from under the concrete, and tugged and pulled, but it felt like something was pulling back. All the hair on my head jumped to attention. The light flickered back on, the smoke cleared, and I could see that hanging onto the other end of that shoe was a giant gray hand with cold, hard, square fingers. Oh, I looked up and saw a familiar guy before he got covered with smoke. He looked at me and I saw big, square shoulders and nothing where his face was. Should have been. It was the whirlpool. Oh man, I gave the shoe one more hard tug and it popped loose from a frilly white sock. I got real scared. I walked slowly and quietly as I could out of the church. Maybe if I moved quietly, he wouldn't come for me. Maybe if I walked and didn't look back, he'd leave me alone. I walked past the adults. They were still there screaming and pointing. I walked past where the guy had the little girl in the blue, right next to where someone else had that little girl in red. I knew if Joey sat down next to those two, their dresses would make the red, white, and blue of American flag. Grown-ups were kneeling down by them with the adults' hands fluttered down towards the little girls. Then, before they could touch anything, fluttered back up over and over. The hands looked like they were little flocks of brown sparrows that were too nervous to land. I walked past the people lying around on the ground in little balls of grass, crying and twitching. I walked past people squeezing each other and shaking. I walked past the hugging trees and telephone poles, looking like they were afraid that they might fly off the earth if they let go. I walked past A million people with their mouths wide open, no sounds coming out. I didn't look behind me, and I walked back as quick as I could to Grandma Sands' house. I felt like I floated up to the front stairs, and I made sure the screen door didn't slam. I took my shoes off and went and sat on my bed. I hadn't remembered to make it that morning, so I got up and tucked in the sheets and fluffed up the pillow like Mama does. I sat back on the bed and looked down at my hands. They were acting like nervous little sparrows, too, so I squeezed them between my knees. I reached in my pocket and took out what that shiny, shiny shoe, which, when me and the whirlpool were trying to grab it away from me, each of the back part of gotten ripped off. Man, the shoe was ripped, like it was made out of paper. The picture of the little white boy with the girl's hairdo on the dog was torn right off in half, and that was left of the all was left of the dog is smiling at me like he'd just eaten a cat. I remember, I tried to remember if I'd been mean to Joey this morning. I guess I hadn't. I never did tell her how she helped Byron save my life in the water. I guess I should have. Where'd you go? How'd you get back here so fast? How come you changed your clothes? My ears had decided to work again. I looked up towards the door and stopped looking when I saw a white frilly sock standing on the wooden floor in front of me. I guess the whirlpool was taking Joey around for her last visits. I was afraid to look up. I was afraid to look at her face. I knew I'd see Whirlpool's rope around her waist. Hi, Joey, was all I could think of saying. Where's Mama and Daddy? Oh, you'll probably get to see them next. He takes you around to see your family before you go. She sat beside me on the bed. I still wouldn't look at her. I dropped the shoe and used my knees to stop the sparrows from fluttering around. Oh man, this was scary. Very scary. I'd seen two little girls on the grass in red and blue dresses, and I didn't want to see my little sister that way too. What's wrong with you, Kenny? How come you look so funny? I guess I should have told her. Thanks for saving my life, huh? Is it too late to tell you that? Joey didn't say anything for a second, then got off the bed. Why are you acting crazy? Where are Mom and Daddy? What's that you dropped? What you trying to hide? She picked up the shoe from where I dropped it. Ooh, Kenny, whose shoe is this? What did you do to it? It's yours, Joey. I got it from the whirlpool. You better quit trying to scare me, Kenny, or I'm gonna tell Mama. This better not be a shoe my shoe, or you're in big trouble, Buster. Joey walked out into the room, but I still couldn't look at her. The whirlpool was pulling whoosh, stopping her away. Joey? After a second, she came back into my bedroom. What? She was sounding real mean. I didn't look up. I kept looking at my hands. I love you. Whop. The shiny, ripped black shoe hit me right in the chest. Whose shoe is that? I finally looked up to see what Joey looked like. There were no ropes around her waist. Nobody's square toes was hanging around. But what was really surprised me was that Joey had both of her shiny black shoes on. She'd taken them off at the front door. Kenneth Bernard Watson, you better tell me what's going on, or I'm really going to tell. And I'm not playing with you. Joey was imitating Mama so much that I didn't say, Bernard, she said, Bernard. So, Joey, didn't you go to Sunday school? You know I did. Don't you know what happened? Joey sat back down next to me. Kenny, I'm not playing with you. Why are you acting so weird? Her voice was starting to get all choky. Why aren't you still at church? It was so hot in there that I went and I stood on the porch and I saw you. Saw me? Where? Kenny, you better stop this nonsense now. You know you waved at me from across the street. You know when I tried to come to you, you kept laughing and running in front of me. You know I chased you all the way down the street. Joey got a funny look on her face. But you had on different clothes. Joey's voice was getting higher with everything she said. And then when she was done, She was sounding real crazy. Joey, that's it. You're through this time, mister. You don't know when to stop teasing, do you? That's it. I'm telling on you. Joey stood up and ran up to the stairs screaming, Mommy, Mommy, Mommy. I could hear Grandma Sands moving around upstairs. She finally clumped down the steps and came into the room. Joey was hanging on her arm and still screaming. Grandma Sands must have had real thin blood because even though it was hot as a furnace in the house, she had on a big, thick nightgown and a big, thick robe. The smell of the baby powder came from the room on the second after she did. What on earth you all raising so much Cain in this early morning? Joetta, honey, stop that noise. Kenny, what's wrong with this child? Joetta finally said, He's trying to scare me, Grandma Sands. He won't tell me where Mommy is. Joey kept boo-hooing like a real idiot. Kenneth, where's Walona and Daniel? Grandma Sands pulled Joey off her leg and held her shoulders and gave her a little shake. Joetta, you've got to stop that noise. Grandma Sands can't handle much more of that noise this early, sweetheart. A bell went off in my head. The Woolpoo had missed Joey. He wasn't having much luck at all with us weird Watsons. I had to go to the church to get Mom and Dad and Byron. Grandma says, Where are all them sirens doing? Lord, has the whole world gone mad today? Where's your mama and daddy? The last thing I heard was Grandma Sands yelling, Boy, if you slam that door again, like that again. And I looked down and saw my socks flying over the Alabama mud.